Hello, Adele Bates, Behaviour and Education Specialist here, and today I want to share what I learnt from Mark, the onboard supervisor on the train on the 12:46 going from London to Crewe on the 17th of May this year, 2019. Because what Mark showed me, and I will reveal the story in a second, is he showed me how quickly and easily it can be to build relationships, which is of course absolutely key as a teacher. And it's something that we often get told: have positive relationships, build positive relationships with your students, especially students with behavioural needs or students who've experienced trauma, abuse and neglect. Those relationships can be so important. And Mark showed me unexpectedly recently how to do this. There's some key things that he covered in what he did, and I'd like to share those first so you can be thinking about them in the back of your mind as I tell you my story. He used positivity, inclusivity, he created community, he played, and he was authentic. So, I'm sat on the 12:46 and I'm on my way back up to the Midlands to see my parents. As probably some of you know, trains coming out of London or into London can be full of lots of commuters who are, let's say, very focused on what they're doing in their work when they're on the train, and it can be quite rare to get any kind of eye contact or interaction on public transport like that. So it was quite unusual sitting there a couple of minutes before we left when Mark, the onboard supervisor, came up over the announcer and he said, "Okay folks, great to have you on here, welcome, etc." Okay, the usual. And then he announced to us that unfortunately the driver wasn't there yet and could we all please send out some positive vibes to make the driver, who was obviously delayed on another train, get to us in time to leave on time. So it kind of made a couple of people chuckle at this stage. Also, he used in his language very specifically, he said he or she when referring to the driver. He was using inclusivity. We were all feeling involved in the way that he was talking. So we sat there and had a little chuckle, some of us, a little bit. And then a couple of minutes later, he was back on the announcer, Tannoy, and said, "Okay folks, you've done really well. You must be a great team because now here's the driver and we can get set off." And what he did with that introduction is start to refer to us as a community. He said the word team. Now, I'm not sure how many people, what the capacity is for a train, but that it was definitely full and there were people sitting in the aisles. And he was already, just with his language, encouraging us to think as if we were together, as if we were a team. And he used this language again later on when there was some signal problems. And he said again, "Hey folks, remember that you had great positivity beforehand and your thoughts really worked. Can you all work together again and shift these signals for us?" So he was building community. Next announcement we had was the most unusual and the one that made me laugh and lots of other people. So Mark announced that he really enjoys his job and that whilst he's travelling, he likes to have a bit of fun. He set us 2 general knowledge pub quiz style questions to think about during the journey, and he encouraged us to chat to the person next to us or the people around us and try and work out the answers. I can't completely remember the questions, but one of them was something like, who was the first people to create package holidays in Britain in 1800 and something? You'll have to look it up. And then he asked us another question about immunisation, and then the final question was, how did those 2 questions relate to each other? And he did instruct us to not look it up on the internet first of all, but to actually chat to each other and see if we can work it out. Now, I had next to me a businessman who really looked as if he just wanted to get on with his work. And I thought, no, actually, I'm not going to do this. We're going to chat. So he made me chat to the stranger next to me. And as I looked around the carriage, everybody was, if they weren't all engaged in chatting, they were at least looking over to each other, listening, eye contact, which, for those of you who are on public transport a lot, especially in a city, this is miraculous. He had used play to make us communicate with each other and become even more a positive team, to start building relationships between ourselves. As we got to Milton Keynes, where Mark unfortunately was getting off, he announced the answer, which by the way is Thomas Cook were the first people to create a package holiday in the 1800s something. And the reason that linked to the immunisation question was because sometimes you need immunisations when you go on holiday. Tenuous link, but anyway. So he'd also suspended that play for us. I mean, of course, some people had looked it up on the internet, but for some people, he'd suspended that play and we'd got a reward for it. A kind of funny, playful reward. He then finished, before he got off, by announcing what he was up to this weekend, which was actually seeing his favourite football team. I believe it was Wolves. I think I got that right. And they were playing apparently at Wembley for the first time in many, many years. And so he was super excited about that. And he was telling us about the odds and chances he felt about his team winning. So what he did there, finally, is give us a bit of himself, show that he's human as well. He was authentic, and he didn't go into inappropriate detail or share his massive private life with us, but he just shared with us that he's a human too, and he's got a weekend to have, and wished us the best with all of ours. So, to recap, Mark helped build positive relationships within 45 minutes with an entire train full of strangers at commuter time through positivity, inclusivity, creating a community, play, and authenticity. And these are things that I use when I am coaching and mentoring others, specifically teachers who work with children with behavioural difficulties. It can be really challenging when someone is throwing things at you, when somebody is swearing at you, when someone is refusing your teaching and your lessons over and over again. How can you engage them? How can you build this positive relationship? I would say start with some of those lessons I learnt from Mark. I would love to hear how you use these kind of things in your teaching. And if you would like the opportunity to work with me further, I currently offer one-to-one behaviour sessions. They're called Beyond Behaviour. And in those, we can have a brainstorm together about your specific either students, class, or school, or maybe it's something around the school policy, and have a brainstorm about actually what would be useful for helping build those relationships with your students. So do get in contact if you're interested in that. And if not, I would love to hear about your comments on this. You can get me at Twitter on Adele J Bates. That's Adele J Bates. See you soon. Thank you. Bye bye.